In a recent video, I asked you guys who among these 5 NBA players you thought were going to have the best NBA career. In this video, I'm going to go over the results of the poll and share with you my own thoughts about the future of these guys in the NBA and a little bit about their sports cards as well, since this is a sports card channel. All right, let's get into this. 12% of you guys thought LaMelo Ball would have the best NBA career of these 5. 51% said Anthony Edwards. 8% said Cade Cunningham. 17% said Scottie Barnes. And 13% said Evan Mobley. This was fascinating to me, actually. 51% said Anthony Edwards. I understand. I completely understand why. He is amazing. He's not the one I would have voted for, but he's probably the second on my list, I think. The one I voted for, the one I didn't actually vote, but if I had voted, I would have voted for the one that got the least amount of votes, Cade Cunningham. I still have a lot of faith in this guy. I think if I had to order this in any way, I would have gone Cade Cunningham and then Anthony Edwards and then Evan Mobley and Scottie Barnes. It's tough for me. I actually think I'd put Evan Mobley a little bit higher than Scottie Barnes, but it's very, very close. Actually, all 4 of those are pretty close to me in many ways. And then LaMelo Ball would have been the 5th. The reason I would have put Cade Cunningham, I guess I just still have a lot of faith in, based on what I've seen from him in the second half of the season, based on what I've seen from him in his college years and the possibilities of what he could become. I just think he's got it in him to become one of the top 10 players in the NBA consistently year after year. I really like his future. I really like, I also like these kind of guys who are able to do a lot of everything. I feel like Cade Cunningham is one of those guys who can do a lot of everything, and he could be the foundational piece to like a championship quality team in his future, I think. Now, as far as his sports cards, that doesn't mean I think he's necessarily the greatest investment, unless, his cards have been coming down in comparison to his draft class. I think oftentimes Jalen Green's cards are a little bit more expensive, and sometimes even like Jonathan Kuminga's cards can jump in there. But then I think, but generally, I think Cade Cunningham's is probably the second most valuable. I do think his cards will eventually be the most valuable of his class. I think Jalen Green's cards will eventually go down. I don't have as much faith in him. I think he's going to be a great scorer, but I put like Jalen Green and Anthony Edwards are similar kind of players, but Anthony Edwards is just a lot better, and I think will always be a lot better. But Jalen Green is going to be a good scorer. I just don't think he's ever going to like be the kind of guy you can put as the number 1 on a really, really good team. But yeah, so most of you guys said Anthony Edwards, and I could see that. He's been in the league a year longer than the Mobley, Barnes, and Cade Cunningham draft class. So you get a little bit more of a glimpse of what he's going to be. And you can see, he's got that athleticism. He's got that mental dogness about him. He's got the confidence, that's for sure. And he's an amazing player, and he improves. That's one thing I really like about him. He's getting better. I think he also has the ability to be good as a part of a system. I think he's very good. I think he's going to be a multi-time all-star, maybe even get an all-NBA in there here and there in the future. I think he's going to be good. I just don't think he's going to be as good as Cade Cunningham. But with his cards, I think that his expectation has started to become baked in. Of course, from his draft class, LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards have by far the 2 most expensive cards. And over time, for a long time, LaMelo Ball's cards were way significantly higher. But it seems to have generally, I haven't done like specific data on this recently, but it seems to have evened out a little bit where the values of the 2 are kind of similar. And I kind of feel like they're both still too high. So I still feel like from an investment side, I still feel like their cards are too expensive and will probably continue to come down until they hit whatever their floor is, and then might eventually become, investable kind of player. Anthony Edwards, LaMelo, I don't think will. I've said this in so many videos. I think his hype is too extreme. I think it's going to be hard for his cards to ever, get to where they are now over time, just because the supply is so high and his hype is so high and his expectation is so high. And I don't have as much faith in him as a basketball player as I do in these other 4. He's good. He's good. I think he will be on the All-Star team a bunch of times. I don't necessarily see him being an All-NBA player or a Hall of Famer necessarily, but I do think he'll make the All-Star team, a number of times in his career, so he's still a good player. Scottie Barnes and Evan Mobley, I also think are excellent players. Really, when I watch Evan Mobley, I'm just like, gosh, this dude, he could do a bit of everything. He can guard your point guard, he can guard your center. He is good. I heard it on ESPN the other day. He was referred to as like, he has this Kevin Garnett-esque ability to guard like an entire quarter of the court. You know, like you could have like 3 players right around each other, and he can kind of guard all 3 of them at the same time. Like he's long and lanky, but very athletic, and has a really high basketball IQ, especially on the defensive end. So I just think he's an absolutely phenomenal player. I think he could be the main guy down low for a championship quality team, maybe even this year. Combine him with I really like the Cleveland Cavaliers this year. I was saying that before the season started too, that this combination of players is just really unique, and I really like it. And they kind of fill each other's weaknesses. Like their strengths really match each other's weaknesses in a really unique way. So I really like Evan Mobley. I think he's got an extremely high ceiling and an extremely high floor. Kevin Garnett-esque. I like that. I like the way that they said that. And Scotty Barnes also, Scotty Barnes is an interesting one because, he came in thinking he was, most people thought he was going to be kind of like this long-term project that you'd have to build up, but he proved to be extremely good right away. But he still is a project, like as in he's continuing to develop skills over time. So I feel like he could become an amazing player. It's one of the reasons why I put up these 5 names, because these are all really good players. I think they're all going to be part of the basketball conversation for a long time. Scotty Barnes I put slightly less than Evan Mobley, just because I think Evan Mobley's defensive capacities are so phenomenal, and offensively I put them kind of in a similar level, quality wise. So that's the reason I put Evan Mobley a little bit higher. From a basketball card standpoint, it's hard to say. I've wondered sometimes if the basketball card market has in it the room for a resurgence of the big man, with the emergence of players like Giannis and Jokic and Mobley and some of these kind of like big guys becoming really big in the NBA. I kind of wonder if there could be a resurgence of them in the sports card world as well. Like we saw in the 90s, that there were so many inserts made in the 90s about the big man. It's because the big man was so popular. You had Shaq. I think it might have started with Shaq, but David Robinson and Tim Duncan and Hakeem Olajuwon. You had like the best player on so many teams was the center, and the basketball card market reflected that. And I've kind of wondered if maybe at some point we might return to something a little bit like that in some way. I mean, the big guys don't have the athleticism and the kind of like the Ja Morants and the Anthony Edwards. Like these guys are so fun to watch, but the big men in the league right now are so skilled in so many different ways that I kind of wonder if over time that could mean a resurgence of interest in those kind of cards, like a Mobley. So I've wondered about that. I don't know for sure, but Giannis, Nikola Jokic, I mean, these guys are, not only are they extremely good and like the best player on a championship contending team just by themselves being there, but they're so fun to watch. I mean, there's nobody in the league that's as fun to watch as Giannis, I don't think. And Nikola Jokic also, he's up there among the top 5 most favorite to just watch, just the way he sees the court and the way he interacts with the court is just phenomenal. It's like watching a chess match. I love it. So, I kind of wonder if over time those kind of players will also see more resurgence in the sports card world. I don't know for sure. I'm just curious. And I think Mobley would be right in the mix of that kind of thing. But again, with these kind of videos, I'm not talking about the sports card market right now necessarily. I'm not saying this is the right guy to go buy cards from or something like that right now. The market is not in the best spot to be thinking long term. I over time maybe it will be, but especially with these young guys that are in these classes that have an overabundance of supply in sports cards, I think you have to be kind of careful about making any kind of long-term decisions. Plenty of short-term flip decisions, even now, even when the market's going down, there's still opportunities all over the place. But as far as long-term, I think the supply is really high. So you have to be thoughtful about approaches to things, no matter who the player is. But from a basketball standpoint, this was more what this video is about, because I just love basketball. So I hope this was fun for you guys. If you love basketball, I'm sure it was. Sharing your thoughts in the comments below about, why you think Anthony Edwards was number 1 out of these 5 players, because I think half of you guys watching this would say that. So anyway, stay healthy, stay awesome, and see you in the next one.